Hey everyone, Ace of Clay here, and welcome to another thrift store transformation, where I take an object from the thrift store and transform it into something completely different. In this one, I'll be taking this grumpy little kid figurine and turning it into a Yeti. So, if you want to see how I do it, then keep on watching. Alright, now believe it or not, this was a lot more complicated to do than I thought, just because the original figurine is shaped so awkwardly. But I worked through it and it ends up working out, and the end result is actually pretty cool. So if you want to see it, then let's start the video. Alright, first step, I am filling in some spaces on this little guy with some aluminum foil and attaching them with masking tape, and then covering the entire thing with some polymer clay. Now, the point of these thrift store transformations is that they are a challenge. I have to work with the composition of the original figurine. I can't modify it, I can't break anything off. I have to use it as is and turn it into something else. So I can add to it, I just can't take anything away. And believe it or not, that's a lot harder to do than you think. Trust me. And then at this point, I have no idea what I'm doing. I don't sketch anything beforehand. I just dive right in with the clay. And maybe I should have sketched this out a little bit before I did this, because half the time while I'm recording, I'm sitting there staring at it like, what the heck is this gonna look like? Like, I have no idea. Normally, when I start a project, I like to be able to completely picture the finished product in my head before I make it. And this time, all I was getting in my head was just blank nothingness. Like, I could not visualize the final product at all in my head, and this was definitely a challenge. Probably my hardest thrift store transformation so far. Yeah, easy. It was definitely my hardest one so far. Alright, now back to the sculpting. I am making the feet here, making some toes. He's only got 4 on each foot because 5 looked weird. And now I am going to shape out that piece of fur that overlaps the top of his legs from his stomach. And I'm just bringing this rolled out piece of clay to a point in the middle and attaching it like so. And then blending all of that in with the rest of his stomach. Adding another piece to bulk it all out, making sure it's all even, and then following that around the back. Now I'm jumping to the hands because, again, I have no idea what I'm doing, so I do a lot of steps out of order, but it does end up coming together and looking like one cohesive Yeti in the end. So you'll see that. And then continuing the hands here, I want them to be very large and exaggerated, just like his feet, so I bulked them out with aluminum foil so they're not too heavy and so they don't crack off in the oven. Now here I'm just adding the fingertips, and then I'm going to sculpt the rest of the finger with my pin tool in a second. Normally I would sculpt all the fingers separately and then position them how I want, but for these I decided to just make half of the fingers and the hand be aluminum foil all one piece, and then just make the fingertips separate. Not sure why I did that, but it worked out. Now I'm attaching the thumb and ball of the hand as one piece. It's a little out of frame, I apologize for that. But I'm just pressing it on and then blending it all together like that, and that's what I do when I make hands for any type of hands, not just Yeti hands. Now, I know I keep saying that I have no idea what I'm doing, which I don't, but I did know one thing before I started making this guy, and that was that I wanted him to be a very stylized, cartoony Yeti, like a cartoon character, and just have really exaggerated features, really big hands, a really big face, really big teeth, and just kind of run with that. Now, with that, I am not used to making things that look like this at all. Like, this is so different than my normal style, it's not even funny. So I really wanted to push myself in that area, but in the end I ended up making it really complicated for myself, because not only was I pushing the style that I was trying to do, I was using a figurine that was really hard to work with. And I know you can't really tell from just watching this video that it was hard to work with, but trust me, it really was. Alright, now I'm adding some fur to the top of his feet, not giving him flip-flops. I'm just shaping that out here. I put a flat piece of clay over the entire foot before I'm adding the individual pieces of hair like that, just so that it has a few different levels of fur and it's not all just one flat surface. So this really makes it more interesting and fun to sculpt actually, because drawing all these little lines was very relaxing and fun, not gonna lie. Continuing the fur around the back until the foot is completely covered, and then I will repeat this process over and over and over and over and over again until pretty much his entire body is covered in this texture. Now I'm taking a break from the fur really quick to detail the hands a little bit. Now we're back to the fur. And then as you can see, I am curving the pieces of fur. I'm twisting them different ways just so they're not sticking straight out and looking really static. I want each one to be kind of pointing in a different direction just to keep it more interesting. And so far so good, haven't screwed anything up yet. Kind of looks like a little kid in a Halloween costume, but anyway, now I'm gonna make some teeth. I'm creating 2 large canines and some incisors. I'm not sure what size I want to make them, so as you can see here, I redo them like 40 times, and then I finally get to a size that I like. And then I pre-bake these so I can just poke them right into that soft jawline after they're completely hardened. Alright, now I'm removing some clay right there because I think I have to add the jaw, but I end up just filling that back in a second. But you guys wanted to see all my mistakes, so I left them all in. Now I'm just covering, I guess, the kid's face with a bunch of clay, shaping out the face roughly, and placing the jaw so that I can kind of get an idea for how this thing's gonna look. Covered that jaw piece with some clay as well, added the clay back to the spot that I just removed it from, and tried attaching the jaw. That didn't work. Let's see what it looks like with some eyes. Wow, that's a mess. Nope, not gonna work. I'm creating the upper lip because now all of a sudden I'm making the creature from the Black Lagoon. Rip that off, and let's try that again. Different kind of smile here. Let's sculpt a nose that I don't like. Sculpt a different nose. I like this one. Let's keep it. Shaping out the nostrils here, adding another piece to the tip so it's a little bigger. And that's looking okay. Time to sculpt his eyes, eyelids, and then just blending those eyelids in with my spoon tool to his head. Like that. I'm surprised the eyelids only took me 1 try, to be honest with you. Now just creating some bags under his eyes like this, just detailing his face. Some more details on the eyelids, and I keep putting that jaw back there because I still can't visualize what this thing's gonna look like when it's done. Alright, now making a brow bone here with 2 pieces of clay, blending those together with my spoon tool. And now the face is kind of starting to take shape for me as I'm doing this. I'm still not sold on it, but we get there. Again, seeing if that jaw looks right. All right. Now I'm going to mix some red clay with translucent clay to color the inside of his mouth, just because once the teeth are in, I'm not going to be able to fit a paintbrush behind them. So I'm doing this. And then this is one of the very few times that you'll see me using colored clay. Now is this the final? No. Okay, now this is the final time where I add the jaw, and it ends up staying on him now. And I'm just filling in the open area at the bottom with some clay, adding some more red clay to color the entire thing, giving him some tiny cheekbones here, shaping everything out. Just some final touches here. And then because I'm still unsure of the outcome, I am brushing his face with clay softener just in case I can't get to it after I add the teeth. I don't know why I thought that, but whatever. Okay, I guess the teeth are gonna look good, so let's add some Bacon Bond. Brush that in, add the teeth, shape out that jawline, and now I know what this guy's gonna look like. I can finally picture it because his face is basically done. All right, now I'm just making his lower lip a little bit bigger by adding a rope of clay and then blending that in to his jaw like so. And then adding some details with my dental tool like that. Some vertical lines and horizontal ones. Now it's time to add a ton of fur to his chest. And then I want to define his pectoral muscles a little bit, so I'm just adding a piece of clay in the general shape of those and adding some fur on top so that it's raised up a little bit more than the rest of his stomach. Now I'm just giving him a nice little beard. You can see there I added a piece of aluminum foil because I didn't want to just put a big glob of clay there. And just finishing him up like that. And I don't know why I added the hair to the top of his head and the sides of his head, because I bake this and then have to go in there and match up all the lines with the new clay that I add. So I don't know why I did that. Now I'm attaching his hands. I was able to just attach his hands by sticking them on with a little bit of Bacon Bond and blending it together. The clay was really fresh and really sticky, so I wasn't super worried about it falling off in the oven, and it didn't, so that was good. Now to give him a little more of a dynamic stance, this is as dynamic as I could possibly get this thing just because of the shape of the original figurine. I'm putting a snowball in his hand. Like that, and I made the snowball with a piece of foil and textured it with a facial scrub brush. After brushing his entire surface with some clay softener, he's ready for the oven. Fresh out of the oven, it's time to add some clay to his back. Now I did end up taking all of the clay on his back off just because I didn't want to texture it yet because it would have gotten smashed as I was texturing the front. So now I'm just adding all of it back and shaping all of that out, and then of course adding more fur and texture just like I did with the front. As I'm making this, I'm thinking he really reminds me of something from Where the Wild Things Are, and I ain't mad about that. I loved that book when I was a kid. Now I'm just finishing off his hairline, like that, blending the clay in with his forehead and the sides of his face as closely as possible so that it is a seamless transition. And then texturing that like everything else. And now it's time to add some horns. I probably should have put these on before I baked him the first time, but whatever, it works out. I'm just attaching them here with some Bacon Bond and then adding some hair that is separating around them. And the reason they are black is because they are primo and I want them to be black in the end, so I figured I'd use black primo as opposed to another color, and also because I only have black and translucent primo on me right now, so That's why they're black, and the reason they're Primo is because Primo is a stronger clay than Super Sculpey, so for pieces like that stick out, it's ideal for it, especially if there's no armature. Now I'm just adding some clumps of fur to his arms. I really want to beef out those forearms. Very ape-like, very gorilla looking, at least that's what I was going for, and then just texturizing all of that. And because I didn't texturize the upper arm before I baked it the first time, I have to add a thin piece of clay over that and texturize that instead. Don't know why I didn't do that before I baked him, but it worked, and we're fine. And he's ready for his second bake! And then fresh out of the oven, it's time to paint him. Of course, after he's completely cooled down. I want him to be a white Yeti, so to give his fur a little bit of dimension, instead of just painting it straight up white, I want to paint his undercoat this nice gray color. I'm using a fairly large round brush just so I can get into those deeper lines that I made with my dental tool when I was sculpting the fur. And then of course I'm using a smaller paintbrush to paint the details that are close to the beige color that I want to keep on his feet, hands, and face. Now to darken the details in his hands, feet, and face, I created a brown wash by mixing some brown paint with water, and I'm just brushing that over the surface and then wiping off the excess with paper towel. And then after the wash dries, I'm just layering some more on top, wiping that off as well until I reach a darkness that I like. This technique can also be called antiquing. And then with a very fine paintbrush, I'm detailing his hairline and all of the areas where you see a definitive separation of fur and skin. I'm just adding some quick wisps of gray to enhance the effect that the hair is growing out of the skin. And now that that base coat gray is completely dry, it's time to brighten the fur a little bit with some straight white paint over the surface. I'm using just a little bit of paint at a time, just so I hit all of the raised areas and I don't get into all of the details. I just want this to stay right on top. And then I start highlighting his face, and then I realize that I've added too much highlight to his nose, so I'm going to remove that paint with some nail polish remover. And I got this tip from you guys, so thank you so much for that. It really worked. I'm just brushing it on with a paintbrush and paper towel, and it's coming right off. Worked perfectly. Now it's time to bring this guy to life and paint his eyes. And then once the whites are completely dry, to paint the irises, just so I know what way this thing is going to be looking when it's done, I always put a dot in the center of the iris and then paint the full iris around that dot. And now I'm just adding a nice little highlight with some lighter blue to the bottom of each iris, and then that is followed by the pupil. In between each of these steps, make sure that each layer is completely dry. Especially make sure your pupils are dry before you start doing these shine reflections. Now I'm just adding some final details, and he's almost done. Detailing the teeth a little bit, shading them with some vertical lines like that. Some light brown worked great for those. Now I'm adding some blue to his horns. Don't know why I thought this would look good. I'm just glazing his eyes with some Americana triple thick glossy varnish, shading some areas like this with some dark gray. And then I realize I don't like the blue, so I paint the horns black again. And then to get some blood flowing through this guy, I'm just painting a little bit of red on his bottom lip, his nose, his fingertips, and just really pushing that detail. And he's done. Our angry little kid figurine is now a full-blown Yeti. Let me know what you think of this transformation in the comments. And that's a wrap, everyone. I really hope you enjoyed this transformation. I know I did, just because I'm not used to sculpting stuff that looks like this, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. Let me know what you think by leaving a comment down below. Like this video, subscribe to my channel, and then follow me on Instagram and Facebook at Ace of Clay, and I will see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.